Hello, and welcome to A Journeyman's Travels. I'm your host, Daniel Scheifler, and welcome back. Now, recently we've been talking about retrospectives, and in particular the first principles of retrospectives, these core root ideas that we need to keep in mind when we are designing, running, and guiding our team through a retrospective. Now, the first place we started for these first principles was that retrospectives must be intentional. We couldn't just enter them all willy-nilly, we had to come in with some kind of a why. And with that why, we could then go forward and explore the gaps intentionally, looking at the places where we knew we weren't so good, and as a result of that exploration, produce growth. Speaking of growth, that was the next major principle, that retrospectives must produce change. And as we explored this, we recognized that most of the change, most of the action items from a retrospective are actually going to be implemented by the people on the team outside of the retrospective. And that allowed us to highlight and explore a number of differences, including some intentionality that we had to take towards the form of the retrospective. Today, I want to talk about one of those funny little elements that we kind of touched on previously, that the action items had to be enacted by individuals. And that is that retrospectives are for people. Now, in the previous episode, we talked about how those action items were executed as changes in individual behavior that had to be executed outside our meeting. That these individual behaviors had to take the place of other things or took additional time. But today, I want to highlight how those individual behaviors take the context inside the team. Because as you mix them together, they take on this kind of gestalt quality, something that emerges as a result of all of these things together. And it is this quality of how the team interacts in their repeated pattern, sprint to sprint, that produces the nature of the team. Sort of like a complex melody at the symphony. It has its different parts, but the resulting music takes form only as a result of many properly tuned chords hit at just the right time in just the right order. But if there's a consistent out-of-tune violin or another in the melody, that mistake, that bug, if you will, has a rippling and magnifying impact on the symphony's gestalt performance. It won't sound right. Something will feel off. That performance is degraded as a result of one small misinteraction. A common misinteraction we might say in the team is like a little bit of friction between the dev and the QA when we hand off a story, throwing it over the fence. Even that little bit of friction in how we do the simplest day-to-day things can result in a huge loss of momentum over time. The team's performance comes from the people, and especially from how those people interact together. Good interactions that are trusting, safe, supportive will build a team that thrives together, even in the hard times. Friction in the interactions, a little bit of sand in the gears, robs everyone of their momentum and energy, even those who aren't in that interaction. Now, a reasonable question may be that, hey, retros are supposed to be used by the team to help them improve their performance. Cool. But, we might get that performance of the team is dependent upon her members and how they interact, and it might be natural to do this trade, but should we? Okay, let me take a couple steps back, right? Scrum, from which the retrospectives are derived, is itself an implementation of the Agile mindset. And the Agile mindset comes from its manifesto, and one of the first trade-offs that the authors of the manifesto highlight is individuals and their interactions over processes and tools. It's literally the first trade-off that the manifesto identifies. So it makes sense that our retros might need to focus on that as a way to improve not merely the process, but the way the process is executed. Everyone may not be, of course, comfortable with this so-called touchy-feely stuff, the kind of messy middle. Humans are emotional beings, and not everyone's comfortable about that. So is it even safe? Well, let me walk you through a couple of things, because before we answer the safety question, we need to answer something more critical. Does it impact performance? Yes. Okay, next question. Is it, this individual's interaction hiccup, is it something that the team themselves could improve? As in, you don't need to bring in outside help? Yes. Okay. Then it's therefore discussable. The trick is, of course, discussing it well. This safe question that came up, right? If the team's dynamics are sufficiently positive, people have enough trust in each other, it's okay to be wrong, then the team can have that conversation in a group setting. But that's not always where teams start. Very often we have to work them up to that. But just because your team isn't there yet doesn't mean that as a Scrum Master or even as the individual team member, you can afford to avoid this topic that impacts the team. Friction behaviors will rob the team over time of its energy and its drive. So I beg of you, steward your team's future and kindly call out the discrepancy. Now, I'll admit, calling out the discrepancy can be tough. Not everyone likes conflict, and I do not blame them. This particular conversation is often among the most uncomfortable we can have. But I think there's a good quote that gives us the right frame of mind for this. And it starts from the idea of an intellectual argument, because when we argue, we're trying to change someone's mind. Just like you're going to be doing when you kindly confront someone about a friction behavior that you're seeing. Now here's the quote. Always remember that to argue and win is to break down the reality of the person you are arguing against. It is painful to lose your reality, so be kind, even if you're right. By Haruki Murakami. Now, let us be clear. Kindness is not sugarcoating the message. It's not avoiding the topic outright so you never have to give an offense. Heck no, those muddy the waters. To be clear is to be kind. Anything less makes it more difficult to have that conversation and even more difficult for something positive to come out from it. If you're going to confront, which is hard already, maximize your chances of getting what you want out of it. So if you must confront, be clear. What is the trouble? What is not the trouble? What can the listener do better in the future? And then critically, I want you to do one more thing. Respect the other party enough to listen. Sometimes you'll find out that they're having a really hard time right now, and that they're sorry that they snapped at you like that, and that it is a pattern that they use to deal with stress. Now you have a new path for addressing it. Sometime you'll find out that they're really frustrated by something, and that's how they've been showing it, because they don't have the tools to express it openly. But if you don't have the respect to listen to them, you can't build the relationship necessary so that those conversations can become part of a group conversation. You have to build psychological safety between individuals first. So building on that idea, and that on the concept that you can in fact have these conflicts well, I believe you should occasionally run a people-focused retro. Now, this is not a gossip session. This is intended to focus on how people interact and their patterns with the intent of helping them do better. For example, looking for ways in which people want to engage but feel like they don't have permission. Not, that Sally, I really think she just doesn't like me because... No, kill that gossip, get it out, and do not ever bring it back in. People-focused retros are intentional and there to produce positive change, not as a vent session. Has to be something that the people in the room can deal with. Talk about anyone who's there as though they are there. Talk about anyone who's missing as though they are there. Simple little equation. Build trust in the team this way. Now, to be fair, suppose you have the complete opposite condition. You don't have a team that's having friction interactions. You have a team that's stupendous. First, congratulations. Genuinely, I'm glad for you. And so it can sometimes feel like a team like that doesn't really need to do this. I mean, they've been together for a while, they're doing well. But let me remind you of something. Even the signers of the Agile Manifesto stated that they were still learning better ways to develop software. And what they shared in the manifesto was essentially their collection of notes on what principles were consistently working, not the statement of this is what shall be and nothing more shall come. Only that we are learning how to do this, and here's the observations that the many of us have started to put together. So if a team like that still thinks it's useful to inspect, adapt, and adjust, why shouldn't we? And they called out individuals and interactions as their first thing to look for in trade-offs. So a long-lived team can actually benefit even more from a people-focused retro, because people fall into patterns and habits. We touched on this a little bit in previous discussions, where people will look for an optimization, that the brain is constantly trying to optimize our work so it spends the least amount of energy, and so it will turn off after it understands a pattern well enough. Critical to the success of the team in the long term is the ability to turn that observation back on so people act again, not react. That we start them thinking, they start observing again in ways that produce positive change. By running a people-focused retrospective, we can discuss things like people's personal strengths, their weaknesses, the patterns of their interaction, and we will be giving them a gift. Let me tell you a story about this. I created a retrospective format for my team because we'd been together for a while. We'd kind of hit a wall. We hit a plateau of our performance, and everyone on the team felt we could do better, but no one quite knew what to do. And of course, we were talking about the regular things. What could we do better? What went well? What didn't go well? What would you like to try and change? Standard 3-column format. And finally, I decided to try and go out on a limb a little bit. I pulled the team away from our regular retroing spot, which was a nice meeting room with lots of whiteboards, and I sat us down at the picnic benches outside where people would normally eat lunch, setting the tone. We're doing something different. I then pulled out 3 stickies, a green one, a yellow, and a pink. On the green, everyone please write down one of your strengths, one thing that you're good at that you think the team could use more of or should use more of. Then on the yellow, I want you to write one thing that you know you're not so good at, but if you could get it covered, the team's performance would improve. Now, of course, with that, there's some discomfort, right? Like, no one wants to talk about their weakness first. But thankfully, we had a good team lead, and he and I jumped in together and shared our weaknesses first. We talked about it, making it safe for the team to see, oh, okay, the ice isn't going to break under me because these two went first. It's okay. We went out of the room, we talked our weakness. We went around the room, talked our strengths. And of course, the strengths was more pleasant. And then the critical element. Having gotten everyone to kindly open up about where they were at, both what they thought they could do more of and what they thought they didn't do enough of, I had everyone take out that pink sticky and said, okay guys, now we're going to play a fusion game. I want you to take your strength and show me how it can cover someone's weakness. And if you've got extra time, I want you to show me how someone's strength can cover your weakness. Now, to my surprise, the team jumped on this. Every single one of them, to a man, had 2 answers, both for how my strength can help someone and how someone else's strength can help me. And we went out of the room and shared this. And there were a variety of ways. We had a guy who was fan-freaking-tastic at unit testing and wanted to offer that more to the team. He just didn't know how to broach the subject with them because he didn't want to feel overbearing of like, no guys, you should do it like this. But we had members on the team who were saying like, I get this unit testing, I see it's valuable, but I just don't get it. Well, shoot, match made in heaven. We just didn't have them talking to each other. And so as we wrapped up this retrospective, and I reminded people, I made a point to it. Hey guys, anyone who just said, here's my strength, covering your weakness, they offered to help. Don't be afraid to ask. And anyone who said, hey, my weakness could be improved by your strength, they're asking for help. Go give it. Not magic. Just providing a structured and safe format for people to talk about that stuff that doesn't come up in a normal conversation. And as they left, you could hear a change in the tone. People were excited again. And the next sprint, we not quite doubled our velocity, but we definitely did like 1.5x. And that maintained for another quarter until we improved it again because we found the way to break through. And it was by discussing these personal interaction details and giving people a way to approach the challenge. And I'm hoping that hearing this story offers you some insights into how you could safely approach a people-focused retro without it becoming a gossip session, and of the kind of results your team might receive on the other end. Because it is possible, I have done it, and it is quite impactful. I have seen it, and I want for you to have that too. And so this has been our discussion on the first principles of retrospectives, these core ideas that allow you to build your retrospectives in ways which will have an impact. And it starts with the retros have to be intentional. Improvement doesn't happen by accident unless you're intentionally changing and looking at the gap and trying to tweak towards a goal. But of course that means that your conversations can't just be navel-gazing. They have to produce change. Else, why are we meeting? Of course, bear in mind that this change is going to be taken from somebody's time. It's going to change a way that they behave, a change of process, something. And so the last element we have to keep in mind is that the retrospectives we run are for the people in them. Processes don't write code. Humans do. Although technically there's some challenge with that with AI, but humans wrote AI too. And humans will use AI as a tool to write code. So it is the humans that we want to help improve, not merely their process, not merely their tools. And that means we need to focus also on how we work together and the ways, the whats we do. How do we talk with each other? How do we collaborate? What am I good at? What are you good at? How do we use those together? So when you're considering your retrospectives, consider retrospecting on your retro. So you can retro in your retro on your retro. Okay, now having said that 3 times, seriously, build your plans from the first principles and look at the retrospectives you're running today. Look for a way to strike the right balance between building deeply effective retrospectives and driving the change and renewal in the culture of your team. By being intentional, focusing on change and measuring it, and keeping in mind that you are there to serve the people on that team to make them all successful. Thank you very much for joining us on this journey. I hope you come back next time.